Here we go. Final episode of the season.
This is what everything has led up to.
Has everything led up to this?
Yes.
Well, should we get into it?
Yes.
Okay. Hello and welcome to It's Giving Camp. I'm Saffron Heftigau.
And I'm Fabiola Liano.
I guess I don't always say my name.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said
I
it.
felt
Anyway.
like saying it because you said it.
Yeah. Well, okay. Today we are watching and discussing
The 1978 Battlestar Galactica.
Yay! Which we, so we are fans of Battlestar Galactica.
The new one.
The
and
new one.
It's
New one?
my favorite show. The new one that's almost 20 years old.
Yeah. Yes, the reboot from the 2000s, early 2000s. The Ronald D. Moore version. And this
is the Glenn Larson version.
Yeah, the classic, as it's listed on Tubi. And this is our first time watching it.
Yeah, although I did know a bit more about it going in than Saffron.
Yeah.
Like, I knew some of the differences and some of the characters that are not in the newer version. But yeah.
I did not realize that there were aliens and there were different planets with people living on planets, and it really it feels a lot more Star Wars-y.
But it also kind of feels like a liminal space, which I would love to get into later.
Yeah.
But like, that is my take on the vibe. But should I give background info
Yeah.
slash plot summary or something?
Yeah, we should probably say what the plot is, because even though we are well versed in Battlestar Galactica lore, we should probably explain what the plot is for people who don't know.
So the original version specifically starts off with there being a planned armistice between the humans of the colonies in space and the Cylons, which are an alien robot race that has been at war with the humans for years. But now they throw out the armistice and completely annihilate all of the colonies except 200 or so ships full of people. And there is one human that is on the Cylon's side, and that is Baltar, who is like a cartoon, and he reminds me of the the Sickos comic panel. Like, that's what he looks like.
I guess so. I mean, he is pure, like, this guy is evil and just wants power and isn't too complicated.
And the main characters are Apollo and Starbuck. They're these two pilots and on the Battlestar Galactica, which
And that's
is
their names, right? That's just their names.
those are their call signs, but they never say their actual names. But yeah, the Battlestar is helmed by Commander Adama, who is Apollo's father, and Adama also has two other kids, Zach, who we actually see at war in the pilot episode for this.
Well, then he's
unlike in the
killed.
reimagined versions. Yeah, he dies. And there's also Athena, Adama's daughter, who is kind of in a love triangle with Starbuck, and Cassiopeia, another woman, but she's like a civilian that they find.
Yeah, well, she's a socialite, or no, is that the word? What's the word they use? That she's basically a sex worker, right?
Yeah, and from then on, it's basically adventures in space with a little bit of like survivalism as well. But the
Yeah,
tone is generally space adventure.
yeah.
And we watched the first three episodes, and episode 12, because that's the episode in which the Pegasus is introduced, which is also a pretty important episode in the reimagined version as
Mm-hmm.
well. So yeah.
Well, and okay, so the I was kind of reading on Wikipedia that originally the pilot was a movie that then got cut up for television.
Yes. So in my yes, so my resource is an article from Inverse, which has written about Battlestar a lot. And this article is by Ryan Britt, and it explains that the 1978 series was initially branded and viewed as a massive Star Wars knockoff.
Hmm.
And it was originally conceived as a 7-part miniseries and not a weekly TV series, with
Oh.
the first three episodes that we watched kind of serving as a 3-hour pilot that was also in theaters. And that's the DVD that my dad has because he has the pilot condensed into a 2-hour movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And the article also says that I'm pretty sure they talk about how it wasn't until they were like halfway through shooting that they were told that this was going to be 24 episodes long, so they kind of had to restructure a bunch of things.
Hmm.
And a large part of the reasons why it's really reminiscent of Star Wars in some ways is because Ralph McQuarrie, who was a Star Wars concept artist, also did concept art for this show. And
Was it the initial idea, was it conceived before Star Wars, or was it like, let's make a sci-fi because Star Wars is doing well?
I'm not entirely sure of that, but it is very clear that they wouldn't have greenlit the show had Star Wars not been a successful movie the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
And George Lucas unsuccessfully tried to sue Battlestar in 1978 for copyright infringement.
Look, can you really say it's like copyright infringement? Because there's enough differences.
Yeah, and the article also writes that since the modern series is so revered, the status of the classic shows utter bravery and charm has been oddly diminished, and that this 1970 Battlestar has been unfairly relegated to a kitsch curiosity by most modern sci-fi fans. Although I wouldn't describe it as kitsch because I associate kitsch with objects and decorations.
Yeah.
Like that's my one qualm with this article. But
You would say that it's
yeah,
camp.
yes.
Yeah. I, when watching this show, and we watched the first episode together, did a commentary, which will be available on our Patreon. Um, I I'm like trying to watch this show and be watching it for the camp aesthetics and camp value. But because I am so familiar with the miniseries, I think part of watching this original, um, the thing that I am focusing on first and foremost are all the differences and similarities, and I'm fascinated by that. Um, but I do think in some ways. I literally, as we started talking, I was like, oh my God, I remember I have a copy of Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica um, show Bible. And I remember reading it before and how he like was talking about taking the opera out of space opera. And I almost wonder in our discussion of camp with Battlestar Galactica, we almost might find similarities from our discussion with Star Trek of like this idea of like trying to remove the fun, trying to make the story serious, make the genre, sci-fi genre serious, that there could be interesting parallels in that. You know, there could be, it could be beneficial to compare the two series in discussing camp.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways in which the show is camp is especially in comparison to the newer version, which it's much more focused on character development and being really serious and gritty, and these characters are in the trenches
Mm-hmm.
compared to the characters in the original.
Well, I will say it is, it was more serious than I thought it would be. The fact that we have in these first couple of episodes the discussion of um like food and wealth disparity, and oh, some of our food has gotten radiation from the attacks, and so we can't feed the people, but there, there's the rich leader who is also hoarding some of the food, and um like it's not like as gritty in the violence. All of the space battles have pew pew laser sounds and massive, fake looking explosions, but it isn't also, the format of the story isn't all fun and games. It is about trying to survive. And they do, at least in the episodes we watch, seem to somewhat do address that. Even if then how they address it and find food is then going to this planet that has a resort and a casino and alien singers. That was a bit odd, but
Yeah, like this show, while being in the commercial sci-fi environment that it was made in, it can only be serious to an extent. It still has to be a sci-fi of the 70s, which I feel like the 70s is a really interesting time for sci-fi because in movies and TV they had a more adventurous, fun tone. Meanwhile, in literature, they did get more serious and cerebral. And
mm-hmm.
there's like this big disconnect in the genre during the 70s.
Yeah, I'm I do think there's something kind of endearing about 70s sci-fi in the aesthetics of
It's wonderful. It's like
I
I
mean,
feel
it's
like visually 70s sci-fi is the best sci-fi.
there's just something, I'm endlessly fascinated by what people of a time period, specific like eras, think that the wardrobe of the future looks like. um where I it's so like all of these outfits that the characters are wearing, even as these like uh galactic warriors. I don't know what they're, they're lieutenants and colonels, and Starbuck and Apollo in their uniforms, and it's gold and it's glittery, and
They're
Adama.
glittery, but they're also earth tones, which are
Yeah.
the two really popular fashion things of the 70s.
Well, and Adama is like in this like cape, like blue cape, and like,
There are so many capes in this show.
and it's so fantasy, I think, is the thing, is it looks really like fantastical in a way that other sci-fi doesn't.
But yeah, 70s sci-fi, and especially in this show, does have this really specific look of being really flowy, but also really structured in other ways. And there's also a clashing between the a lot of the interiors are neutral, but also a bunch of other interiors are have a bunch of colors and glitter on them.
I Yeah, I mean, the freaking resort on what was the planet called? Uh Coraline, or no, Coraline, what is it?
Caroline.
Yeah.
First of all, they're mostly just in the middle of nowhere until they stumble upon this woman who has a bunch of feathers in her
Yeah.
hair and a flowy dress, and she's just casually talking about this resort, and all of a sudden we're in this Beyonce Renaissance type place where they should be playing Alien Superstar, and it's great.
Your your that reference is about to date when we recorded this episode,
I
so
hope it doesn't. I
that's
hope
true.
it
That's
doesn't.
true. There's there's something truly like bizarrely comedic about the fact that they are like the last of civilization. They're escaping these Cylon attacks, and they just stumble across like Las Vegas, where no one knows that the world ended, and just people want to gamble and go to like clubs, and then it turns out, oh, it's run by these aliens.
Yeah, like there's underground I'm calling it Tilium because that's the way I'm used to saying it because of the reimagined version, but they're calling it Tylium here.
Oh, yeah. Huh, I guess that is supposed to be the same resource.
It's just a different pronunciation.
Yeah.
But yeah, under this casino resort place, they there's these aliens that are harvesting people, and there's this one really good shot with Cassiopeia. She like the elevator doors open, and one of my favorite things ever happens, which is a zoom in scream.
Something seems to be happening.
Let me have that control. There. We've stopped. Thank goodness. I wonder what's down here.
Honestly, I didn't have a lot of academic thoughts about it. I was just kind of having fun, which I guess is sometimes the point.
Yeah.
um there was lots of little bits that made me just like laugh. There was, I think, one of my favorite line readings that I in the entire like swath of episodes that we watched was um when the Cylon supreme leader is talking to one of the Centurions, and was they were like, oh, I thought we were supposed to wipe out, why are it was a surprise attack. How are there any survivors? And then the Centurion robot in this robotic voice just goes like, apparently it wasn't as much of a surprise as we thought it would be. Something
Cylons
about
are very funny.
it's so something about a robot going, apparently it like I guess what it reminded me of was the Palpatine's back, like apparently, like this just like defeated.
But yeah, and also the Cylons are shot in a way that they look like those fan cam filters with the sparkles.
They are so sparkly. They have literally so many lens flares. Or can you call them lens flares? I don't know. They're just like,
they don't look like lens flares, they just look like sparkle reflection.
it's so, and then also it happens on the helmets sometimes, the Viper pilot helmets that have a ring of lights around them, and they look so fake. They just look like, overall the CGI in the space battle stuff looks pretty decent for the 70s, but sometimes when they're flying in these Viper pilots, I'm like, you look like you are in a toy. Like, it looks so plastic. But that's part of, buying into it is part of the fun.
There's this one point where Boxy, the cute little boy in the show, he runs towards one of the elevators in the casino resort and bangs on it, and it looks and sounds like plastic.
Yeah. Also the Muffet.
We have to
robot
talk
dog.
about Muffet.
Well, okay, so first
of all, dogs are called Daggets in this show.
And I mean, that's just having a robot dog for the little kid sidekick who I guess Apollo adopted, because Apollo, like, Boxy calls him dad by the Pegasus episode. That just to me is like, oh, this kind of like shows like the all ages fun accessible aspect like television in the 70s had. It's like, it's not, there wasn't really,
there were
like,
3 channels.
Yeah, there isn't prime time serious dramas. It's like, okay, there's this show and it needs to appeal to all ages. It's what family friendly programming, right? And so yeah, let's put this kid and his robot dog.
Yeah, it's so interesting how Boxy and Moffat make sense in this show, but I'm so glad they wrote out Boxy in the reimagined Battlestar, because he's only in the miniseries and he's a slightly older kid, but because of the time gap between the miniseries and the first season, he already got too old, and I'm like, good, this is not a cute little kid show.
He would have died so fast. I would have been so concerned that like he's not gonna survive. But in this show, it doesn't feel like there's ever like there's danger, but it doesn't ever feel like
it does not have the holding a character at gunpoint energy that the new one has.
It's just a different, you're just trying to tell a different story in between the two, I think. I mean, talking about Pegasus and the Pegasus arc.
First of all, I would like to talk about Lucifer.
What do you want to say about Lucifer? The fact that it's a robot named Lucifer?
It's a robot named Lucifer with this red sparkly cape and purple head with visible wires on it, like those early 2000s computers.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure Lucifer is supposed to be analogous to Six, and the reimagined one, who
What?
is this. I'm pretty sure Lucifer's the Six.
That
And the reason why
please tell me there's
Saffron is
Baltar.
saying what?
Please tell me there's Baltar and Lucifer slash. Please
The
tell
reason
me someone
Saffron
wrote.
is saying what is because number 6 is a humanoid blonde woman in a red dress.
And
she's literally played by a model.
she is literally like, she is femme fatale, sexy.
He's the girl boss.
Yeah. And like, she and Baltar have sex a lot. I mean, they do. So, but okay, here's the thing. I love Gaius Baltar. When I first watched the miniseries, which is the pilot for the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 miniseries, I hated him. I hated him so much. I was like, who is this awful man? Why does he get to survive? And then, as the show continued, I realized that's the point. He is a little slimy rat, and he is so pathetic. He is just
He
like,
got tricked into being with Cylons, unlike in the original version.
yeah. Oh, he
got roped into this.
He is a pathetic man whore. Literally, the world is destroyed because he wanted some robot pussy. Like, and this Baltar, meanwhile, is the complete, like, just...
He's like a Batman villain.
Yeah. It's so,
There's this scene in the Pegasus episode where he's on one of the Cylon ships with this kind of Cylon helmet that's also really sparkly, and he's just yelling at the Battlestar like, "I'll get you, Adama."
Yeah.
And that's basically what he is.
I think both versions of Baltar are really fun. It's just that I prefer my men pathetic, and so the moment that I had the most fun with Baltar in this series is when you think he's going to be executed, then he's brought back to be spared by the supreme leader, and he's like begging, like, "Oh yeah, yes, I know all about humans. I can help you capture them." I want, I don't know, what was this point? I guess having learned so much from you now over the course of us recording this season about camp, I can say that, oh, Baltar in this BSG classic is instant character.
Yes.
You don't realize,
like, you get the vibe immediately.
Yeah, it's like they don't say that he's evil, but you look at him that first time and he's like, "Oh, I'm just it's good luck that I have been chosen by the Cylons to act as your ambassador for this peace treaty." And you're like, "This dude is sketchy. I know it." And he's like leaning over the president's shoulder being like, "Oh, I really advise you not to send these attacks, or you don't send out Vipers. You don't want to look like you're planning attack when we're so close to peace." And then he disappears and you're like, okay, yeah, that guy's evil. But it also makes me think about melodrama and melodramatic acting, in the sense that there is a lot of melodramatic acting in the reimagined Battlestar and the original Battlestar, but the intention of the melodrama between the two shows is such that in the original it just feels like that's all just part of the like vibes, I guess, of just part of like, maybe it's not even like meant to be seen as campy and ridiculous. It's just like that's what acting was. Versus in like the original, in the reimagined, it's like these characters are so complex and they're having these really deeply human emotions that some of this like melodrama spills out, but like the origin of it is different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was gonna say that the original Battlestar does kind of run on vibes, which is very different than on what the reimagined Battlestar runs on. But yeah, the original one just immediately has love triangles, but they're way more playful and have lower stakes than the ones we eventually get in the reimagined one.
Well, and also like, I mean, I'm not gonna get over the shot of, I think it's Athena in their bridge, which is called the CIC in um the reimagined version, where like when they're finding out about these Cylon attacks on the colonies, she like starts crying, and you get this like
Everyone has the one single tear.
everyone has
every
a one
single
tear,
person.
and hers is mascara stained. It just leads this like perfect black trail down her face, and I'm like, this is so dramatic.
But then they also just kind of move on with their lives. Like it's mostly the civilians that are really worried about their survival and stuff.
I also thought that like, I mean, the love triangle between Starbuck, Athena, and Cassiopeia feels a lot more playful.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, but like thinking specifically of this, the scene where it's like Starbuck and Cassiopeia like run off to have sex, and then Athena like sees them on the screens, and she like shoots a bunch of like steam or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, damn, like that, I would think that would like burn him up, but nope, it's just like some playful. And then later there's like, next scene there's like some remark from Apollo about, oh, he's got some steam burns, and that's it. Like it's just part of this kind of like flirty back and forth.
Yeah, meanwhile, the the love triangles, I would rather say rectangle because that's or a square because that's what it is in the reimagined, but it's the stakes are much higher and all the characters are screaming, crying, throwing up.
Excuse me, I believe you're occupying my space.
Your space?
Yes, I have good news.
Huh?
I got us the key to the royal suite.
Why, thank you. We do appreciate it.
Say, listen, girls, I've got this hot streak going here. I'd sort of
Oh, I see.
Yes, I do too. Well, have a good time, you two. And next time, it's at office rates, Lieutenant.
Speaking of screaming, crying, throwing up, we need to compare and contrast the Pegasus episodes.
We do. Well, okay, I think as a lead up to talking about that, one of the things that I kept noticing is casting, where so I think one of the probably the most well-known differences between the two Battlestars is the character of Starbuck. How in the reboot, reimagined, Starbuck is Kara Thrace and a woman, and she is very she does seem kind of genderqueer in the sense that she's like has short hair, she's very like tomboyish and masculine, and but also and has a lot of sex, but she only has sex with men. I want to Kara Thrace, you are bisexual to me. Actually, no, this is tangent. Really what it is, Anders, he, him, lesbian, Kara Thrace, also
Yes.
lesbian. They are, and Apollo's there.
We need to spread the Sam Anders transmasc lesbian agenda.
like, okay, neither of us are trans mask, but I feel like he has those, you've seen this from trans mask people saying it, right? Like,
Yes.
I just feel he, Anders, he is so lesbian to me. Okay. Anyway, but the the cast of the reboot feels a lot more diverse, racially diverse, I guess.
But
And
the original
also,
is also kind of diverse too.
yeah, I think I
I think the difference is that the reboot does kind of give each character a little something more to work with.
yeah,
Meanwhile, the original doesn't feel as much of an ensemble as the reimagined.
yeah. Well, the other thing that I was thinking about the fact I'm like, okay, I feel like there's a lot more interesting and dynamic female characters in the reimagined version, because in the original it's like you've got Athena, who's a brunette, overly emotional girl, and then you got Cassiopeia, who's blonde and uh is a sex
She's
worker.
she's a girlfriend.
Yeah, and then you've got, what's her name, who I guess died in one of the episodes between the pilot and the mother of Boxy, who,
Serena.
yeah, or she's just gone or something.
Yeah, but Serena was, it seems that she, in the pilot, she's a reporter, but now she is not a reporter because the world ended.
You basically have three slightly different flavors of women who get very emotional about men.
And also skinny and
Kids.
white.
Yeah. Um by flavors I mean their hair are slightly different colors or styles. And they're all white, skinny white women. Meanwhile, in the original, meanwhile, in the reboot, you've got so many interesting female characters. You've got Starbuck, you've got Six, you've got Boomer, you've got Athena, which are both, it's not, you find it out in the pilot that the eight is one of the models, and that's um
Different characters, same actress.
yes. And you've got like Cat, um you've got you've got
Lala,
yeah, you got D, you've got Admiral Kane, um you've got
Lucy Lawless.
yes, Diana. Right, is her name
Deanna.
Diana? Yeah, Deanna 3. You've got Kaylee? No, Callie.
Callie. Kaylee is from Firefly.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, the thing I think that I noticed was that I feel like the characters of color in the original just were. And while this, like, the characters in the reboot, like, not, like, it seems to be, it's kind of like a, in the future, kind of a raceless society, but also there is some reference to like caste and caste systems, and because of like the different planets and stuff. I think because the characters are more complex, they feel like you know, it's like, oh, this is a complicated female character. This is a nuanced bisexual man of color. Like, I don't know. Whereas in the original, it's just like, yeah, Ty's black.
But he also doesn't get to be an alcoholic who often needs to be micromanaged.
Yeah. I guess but that's not, the point isn't to tell a story about characters, it's just to tell.
Yeah. The point is to be an adventurous sci-fi story.
Do you think over the course of the 2 seasons that the original aired, there were character arcs?
I'm not entirely sure. From the 4 episodes that we watched, it doesn't really seem so. And if there were, as from what we saw in the Pegasus episode, they usually get resolved within the episode.
It's very sitcom.
Like, the arcs
sense.
are very self-contained.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the ways in which the original is camp, and the way a lot of older media is camp is by virtue of just being very different than what is currently being made.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just in the structure, but also the look of it and the tone of it.
Yeah. Like, okay, so speaking of the Pegasus arc, honestly, at its core, the motivations between Kane versus Adama are the same. Adama wants to focus on protecting the fleet and the, you know, all the civilian vessels, and not running, that's how Kane sees it, but like finding a way forward to keep moving on to survive. While Kane is like, we should fight. And it does come from these different, you know, experiences of like the Pegasus always has been fighting and it's just been on their own, versus the Battlestar has always been with the fleet and working to protect. But in the original, there's not the difference in,
there's
like,
no power difference.
Yeah.
Which is really key in the reimagined one, because in the original, they're both of the same rank. So they can't really technically overstep one another in terms of like policies or taking different actions.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the reimagined, Admiral Kane is an admiral, therefore she can absolutely do whatever she wants, which
And then also,
results in the most stressful episode of TV I've ever seen.
well, and it also, because the show from its beginning, from its concept, has a different understanding, a more nuanced and complicated and plot-driven understanding of the Cylons being human, like being humanoid and looking like humans. And also Cylons were created by the humans in the reimagined series. You get all of these complicated relationship dynamics between the humans and the Cylons, and you get like, it is so like, it really is, I don't know, it's kind of fascinating the fact that the episodes end up being like the same amount of time, but so much more gets explored in the reimagined version. Like, sometimes I'm like, damn, what is all this time? Like, this is a 48-minute episode, and what are they doing for all this time? It's like, oh, it's only an A plot, wherein like there's so many plot lines going on in the reimagined.
Also, most of the conflict between Adama and Kane in the original is like you said, of whether to run or keep fighting, and that's basically the extent of it throughout the episode, until at one point Kane is like, yeah, you're right, Adama, like we should focus on the safety of the fleet. And yeah, and most of Kane's power comes from how revered he is among his ship.
Yeah. And they never even explain why. They're just like, this is a living legend. He's a hero. Do they even say why? They're just like, oh, he's super cool. They don't like even name some battle that he fought in, I don't think.
But yeah, meanwhile, in the reimagined, like, not only is there that difference between method, but also Admiral Kane is literally doing Abu Ghraib. Like, it's literally inspired by the Abu Ghraib situation, which leads to many other problems. And also because she's Admiral, she can decide what she wants to do with the crew of the Galactica, which means she ends up splitting up a bunch of friendships. And by the end of the episode, she's like, yeah, we're gonna execute two of the most beloved characters in the show.
Well, okay, yeah, but that's also like because of the
Abu Ghraib of it all.
Ugh. Yeah, it's.
But I was like,
is Battlestar Galactica the reimagined series one of the most stressful shows I've ever seen? If not the most stressful show I've ever seen? Yes. Do I highly recommend everyone watch it? Well, maybe not everyone, but yes.
Yes, it's my favorite show. But I was gonna say that I was so glad to finally watch a Pegasus episode that did not activate my fight or flight. Like, I just let this one's vibes wash over me, which is kind of what camp is.
Yeah.
Letting vibes wash over you.
Okay, this is now completely off our topic. Well, it's not off our topic, it's in the topic, but I realized as over the course we're talking when we were listing the female characters, we forgot Ellen.
Oh, Ellen. The one camp thing about the reimagined one.
Yeah.
I will say.
Also, I love that we didn't say Rosalind. We're just like, yeah, whatever. Even though she's probably most people's favorite character. I'm just like,
not ours.
Not ours. I'm sorry. She's too Hillary Clinton for my taste. She's too
She's too unironic girl bossery.
She literally tried to ban abortions because
she didn't try, she fully did it.
Yeah, and then she stole the bait.
So we're out here getting stressed about this show we saw years ago.
Literally, I will never forgive her for that. I know she thought she was doing the right thing for humanity or whatever. You stole Sharon's baby. You thought you made her think Hera was dead. And then later,
it's camp that the original did not have an abortion storyline that we know of.
Oh my god. Literally, and the fact that then she was like off boning Adama, and like there are reasons Gaeta did his coup. Because she was an incompetent leader, and Adama was an incompetent leader because he decided to just like take care of her, And people are like, there's such a sweet relationship. I'm like, yeah, they should have both fucking
They're
resigned.
neglecting humanity.
Literally. Like, I know everyone's super depressed because you think the world's, the world's over. Calm down. You didn't do a good job of explaining anything, and now our favorite guy wants a mutiny. And look, yes, he also did try to kill Sharon and the other Cylons and kill Athena and all that, but like, he Data's a good girl boss. Yeah,
He had the spirit.
Oh my god, Gata and Wilgren should meet each other.
Yes. Those are my two favorite boys for a reason.
Baby
but anyways, the original Adama would not neglect humanity.
No. He probably will have
shiny
less fun.
Little outfit.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have less fun. Well, or maybe he's gonna have more fun. I don't know. He was taking a lot of time looking out the window and looking solemn, but
I will say the windows are really reminiscent of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like the big windows, like, yeah, that's one of the things.
Also, the thing score? About
yes, it's very John Williams.
Yeah.
But it's also, the original's kind of, like, as I've said before, with 70s sci-fi, it's kind of an amalgam of different popular sci-fi from that decade and before. Like, I also saw Star Trek in there as well.
For sure. And also, like, even stuff that came before that, right? Like, the kind of, the, like, B-movie stuff and, like, the, there's, like, the...
Moffat and the Cylons are very 50s B-movie.
And, gosh, I'm blanking on the name. There was the Buck Rogers, too.
Yeah, and Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Which did inspire Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like one of the most stylistically camp things about the original Battlestar is how it is kind of this mishmash of different sci-fi of the time.
But at the same time, it does have a plot that stands out as rather unique. I mean, like the idea of, okay, all of the planets are destroyed and now we only have this group of
spaceships. One of them being a moving spaceship, which we thought was really funny.
But then at the same time, that like serious, like dramatic stakes of like, this is the last of humanity going among the stars, loses some of the stakes when you find out, like every other episode, oh, there's a planet with some other life on it.
Listen, what is this place? What are you doing here?
What am I doing here? What are you doing here? Colonial warriors sneaking around a resort like this with your weapons drawn.
Oh, sorry.
This is legal, isn't it?
Well, how did you get here?
Oh, I came in a skybus.
She must have been smoking plant paper.
I guess this brings me to my question, unless you still want to talk more about like the liminal space of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, kind of, but you can ask your question.
Okay, so you love camp, and you love the 2000s Battlestar Galactica. How, I guess, do you hold those two things at once, or because the remake is not camp? It takes this fun space adventure plot and makes it super serious, and it's created your favorite
arguably
show.
Grimdark. It's arguably Grimdark.
Yeah, it honestly, you could say it is, because it's taking this fun thing and making it gritty, which you tend not to like. but you do like Battlestar. So what? How? What? Why is that? I guess.
I just, yeah, I do hold both of them together. Like I feel like I famously like many different things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good that there's so many different things out there. And also I think I prize the characters and the plot of Battlestar more than like the gritty aesthetic of
Mm-hmm.
it. But also if we didn't have the more gritty stuff out there, the camp wouldn't stand out.
Mm. It's like you need both
Yeah.
to appreciate the other.
Yes.
And I guess camp is also about contradictions, and you can't be all the same. You can't have everything the same if you want contradictions.
If everything is camp, nothing is camp.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So then what?
But also back to the liminal spaces.
Okay.
I I want to talk about the special effects and like the matte paintings that they use,
Oh, yeah.
because this is it's like a really hyper specific filmmaking technology of the time, and it's always so fun to witness it. Like I love the shots of the Tillium mine where you
Mm-hmm.
can tell that this is painted, but you can also see the different characters walking around and doing stuff, and I it's just so charming to me.
Yeah. Personally, I think the the set design that I appreciated the most was these, you can tell, very like practical lighting effects of like the
We
launch
forgot
chute.
to mention how whenever like a lot of the time the lighting gets completely red or
Yeah.
completely green.
Well, I was also just gonna say I love the like launch chutes that have these like ring of lights that's
Yeah.
like looks like it's built into the set to have that illumination.
It also looks really stroby and
Yeah.
disco-y.
Yeah. It is man, they don't make color like they used to.
Yeah. Why do you think I love the 70s so much and 70s movies? They have a specific look to them that is unparalleled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when you say liminal space, does that feel, it feels very 70s to you, but does it also feel timeless?
It feels timeless in the sense that you can't really place it. Like it's hard to place.
Mm.
Like because visually the series is such a mishmash of different sci-fi stuff of the time, you can't really place it in any sci-fi box other than the 1978 Battlestar box.
Mm.
You can tell the rest of your Playboy pilots this is not the last flash inspection that I'm going to make. And if I ever find uniforms in this condition, you're in trouble. When Commander Adama sees these, he's gonna go crazy. It's gotta be the pressure.
My last question, thinking about how you like to hold multiple aesthetics and modes of production at once, and considering that this is kind of our last episode of the season before taking a break, what do you take away from the films that we've, and television? Oh, you're frozen. Fuck. When did I cut out?
When you're saying, what do you take from the films and
Oh.
television?
Oh, okay, cool. You heard that. What do you take away from the films and TV shows that we've watched for keeping in mind for your own like future production, or what you hope like other creatives would consider in production?
I think just a lot of inspiration and new ways of seeing things and interpreting things.
But like, what specifically are you drawing inspiration from?
I feel mostly the aesthetics, but also in the way the aesthetics interact in some way to the text of the films and television. Basically, what I'm saying is style is substance a lot of the time when it comes to camp. And I feel like people don't really acknowledge that, like in general, regardless of whether a text is camp.
And you basically, you don't, it's not like there's one style of camp. So
there's so many.
So
as from what we've seen, there are so many.
Yeah. So what is the style that appeals to you the most? Is it something that we've seen, or is it something that you are developing yourself?
I think it's a bit of both. Like that there are films that I would love to cover in future batches of episodes that I do think have been really influential to me, but of the ones that we've covered, Female in Trouble definitely, and The Suicide Squad, and Elvira, and The Sign of the Cross. Like I definitely like the ones that are more darker leaning in subject matter and still having fun.
And you're drawn to the more of the sex and the perverted.
Yeah, I like the edgy stuff.
Yeah.
But I also specifically like it when it's also a lot of fun and full of colors and textures.
Mm-hmm. I'll just answer the question of what I think I've taken away for myself. I've definitely taken away this understanding that it doesn't need to be serious all the time, that you can have fun, and that doesn't diminish the genre or the existential questions you might be asking. And I think it's made me think a lot more about it's made me think about the creation of a show more holistically. The fact that to consider the characters, you should consider the lighting, you should consider the costumes. It all comes together to create the story, because the story, it isn't like, you can't just in a visual medium, it's not just about the writing. It's going to be about every step of production when it comes all together. That's where the substance is. It's not like there isn't, your costuming shouldn't be an afterthought, because that can add as much weight to the character as the lines of dialogue, which is something that is even in films that aren't camp. But I think it's seeing it from a camp lens really cements that for me. I guess that's it for now.
That was a Slay finale. This is a Slay season finale.
Yeah. All right. The music starts. You can find us on Twitter at Giving Camp Pod.
And on Instagram at It's Giving Camp Pod.
Our theme music that you are listening to right now is by Harrison Lurie.
Shout out to our patrons, Nicole and Jose.
I'm Saffron Heftegau, and I'm online at GalHefta.
And I'm Fabiola Liano, and you can find me on Twitter at Fabiola_Liano.
Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoy our podcast, please recommend it to your friends and give us a rating online.